Folks who just joined us, I'm talking to Fred Wellman. You know him, you love him. He is the host of On Democracy with FP Wellman on the Midas Touch. He's also a veteran. He also writes a fantastic Substack, and the heavens parted yesterday because I wanted to write. I was going to write about "Make America Corrupt Again," based upon this naked, shameless transactional presidency where everything's quid pro quo. America's for sale. Pardons are for sale. National security is for sale. And there are multiple examples that we'll go through if you haven't been paying attention.
Yeah.
And then in my inbox at that same exact moment, I saw Fred's piece. It just landed. And Fred's like, well, maybe it's a kleptocracy. Well, maybe it's a kakistocracy. Well, maybe it's an oligarchy. Well, maybe it's, you know what? It's all of the above. Check, 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 check.
Yep.
And, this is the Left Hook Substack for those who are watching. Please subscribe, and everything is for free. I have no paywalls. If you can be a paid subscriber, please do. If not, I understand. Spread the good news. A democratic electorate should be informed. And so we're talking about the naked, shameless corruption and grift of the Trump administration, which I think has gone on steroids this past week. And I don't know
Yeah.
if you saw the news. Every day there's a news story, right? So let's just
Yep.
focus on the story that we still should be talking about, but it's already been punted out of the news. Last week, Donald Trump, the President of the United States of America, and you're a veteran and you understand military intelligence,
Yep.
accepted officially a $400 million bribe. I think words are
Yep.
important. A $400 million bribe from Qatar. And specifically, the bribe is in the form of a luxury plane that he says he wants to use as Air Force One. Now, will he do it? Who knows? Because it's probably going to cost billions of dollars to retrofit it. But
Yeah.
the fact that he A has already accepted it, B has said that he wants to use his Air Force One, and then C will gift it to the Trump Presidential Library. Just break it down for us, Fred, why this is so shameful and egregious. And if Joe Biden had done it, we'd be talking about it for 4 years.
Well, that's it, right? It's such a perfect vehicle for this conversation, right? It's like, and you
Literally,
forgot the part too, huh?
literally.
Literally, yeah. But it starts with the fact we were also finding out yesterday that Qatar, Qatar didn't gift it to him. He asked for it. He went and asked for it. And they yesterday said, "Hey, we want to make sure you understand that we didn't just gift this to you," which is screwing up his whole plan. It's like, wait a minute, we need a letter of agreement that this is. So again, it's the naked grift that drives Donald Trump's life. Obviously, you can't just take a $400 million jet and to the DoD, and then for some reason the DoD is going to give it out to his library. I mean, the whole thing is but it's such a perfect example of the man and who he is and how he's using this office to move forward. Did you see the speech where he said that he's really excited to have Air Force One in his presidential library because nobody was visiting Ronald Reagan's until they put Air Force One in it, and then it's like the mental machinations of this man. It's always about future grift. Like I've never seen someone who play. Everybody says he's playing 5D chess. He's playing 5D, Monopoly. I think
Not even Monopoly, because
it's
Monopoly
about the
requires
next
some skill.
grift. Yeah, next grift,
Grip,
next
grip, grip.
grift, next grift, and the next grift is I get this fancy jet. I get out of office. Okay, I can't run again, but we'll put it in my library. We'll charge access grift, 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 grift. I mean, it is that oligarchy kind of thing. The comments he's made. I mean, you saw it. It's embarrassing when we pull up to other countries. They got these nicer jets than us. Like, the fuck are you talking about? It's like, you're the president of the United States, one of the most powerful countries on earth, and you're worried that your dick is too small. Still, it's like it is just, it's just it goes to that psychopathic brain crust. He's nuts. I mean, there's just no way to put it. So what bothers me about this time around, though, which it goes back to what I wrote yesterday, and what you're talking about too, is we had some limits last time. There were adults in the room. Congress wasn't as terrified as they are this time. But January 6th made it clear, Congress, that his followers will commit violence in his name.
Yeah.
And so this cycle, those people who would have stood up a little bit more aren't. He's in place people like Pete Hegseth and Christine Noem and Rubio, who are very happy just to gently nurture his sack. And because of that, he can do this most nakedly corrupt things and get away with it, and no one's going to stand up and say no. So then, since they know that now, we know he's a psychopath. Well, I'm just going to do my own thing, right? And that's where you get the oligarchs coming in, the Lutnicks and the Musk. You get the idiots like Kristen Noem, who's basically turned her job into an Instagram modeling position. Pete Hegseth,
Cosplaying.
Yeah, cosplay every day. You've got the dream of the Project 2025 white Christian nationalist movement. That's what Russell Vaught's all about. It's about the Christian national. That's where Hegseth comes in. Hegseth is the plant of his church. If you know that extremist church he belongs to, one of their goals was to place their members in high positions of government power to break down the balance between church and state, the wall between church and state. So essentially, you've got Donald Trump doing his own you know, klepto, stuff. But as long as we keep him happy, and it's like a toddler, right? I think of it that way. When you take a toddler to a restaurant, give him his crayons, give him his toys. My wife used to carry like a whole purse full of Matchbox cars. And he could play with his toys in the corner and he could talk to the press and say shit. But we're gonna do our own thing. We're gonna have a couple glasses of wine, we're gonna eat some pizza and let him mind his own business. And that's what I think our government is today. It's a bunch of people running their own forms of government underneath Donald Trump's kleptomania.
And the problem though is I would say out of respect to children, I have three kids. My kids are decent. Like, they get
Yeah,
satiated after a while, right? They listen. With
yeah,
Donald Trump, and I talked to Mary Trump about this, his niece, and there's a video you can watch it on my Substack or also on YouTube. She's
hmm,
also a psychologist, and she broke it down. If you really think about it, Fred, it's never enough. This is a nearly 79-year-old man who has all the wealth, whiteness, privilege, and it's never enough. All the
right.
women, never enough. All the toys, never enough. All the power, never enough. Right? The grievance, the anger, the rage, it's never enough.
Mm.
So
Nope.
not only will we be run by a greedy, corrupt transactional man who is quid pro quo when it comes to everything, even national security,
Yeah,
it's still never
yeah,
enough, right?
nope.
And then speaking about the let's just stick with kleptocracy for a second. I want you to define it, but I want to give another example because there are so many examples, folks, that have just come out in this past week, and we'll go through all of them. In addition to the Qatari jet, Trump in April pardoned Paul Walczak. He's a
Yeah.
former nursing home executive who was sentenced to 18 months in prison and ordered to pay more than $4 million for tax crimes. Well, he got a pardon. And specifically, why should we care about that pardon? Because of the political activities of his mother, Elizabeth Fago, a GOP donor who last week attended the $1 million per person fundraising dinner at Mar-a-Lago. Oh,
What a
when
coincidence.
Donald Trump openly and nakedly auctioned access to himself to anyone who buys his stupid meme coin that has made him $300 million. And so you got people off the record saying, yeah, we're literally going there to buy access. And then
Right.
he said, whoever buys the most, they're gonna get a private dinner to my golf club.
Hmm.
Of course, the golf club, more grift, and then whoever gets the most money will get a private tour of DC. And so Elizabeth buys
Yeah.
buys access, and what does she get for it? She gets a pardon for this guy who doesn't deserve a pardon, who's only served 18 months. Fred.
And just days before he was supposed to pay $4 million in fee in money. So literally his pardon comes within the days of him having to write a $4 million check. So for $1 million, they saved 4 million. That's a pretty damn good deal, and it's funny, you're right, because I did that. I actually went to Webster's, got the definition of each of these things. Kleptocracy, governed by those who seek chiefly status and personal gain at the expense of the governed. Donald J. Trump, anybody? No, it's like it's just literally a living. That's where he's living. That's his form. That's what he and look. That's who Donald Trump is. Everything's always been about lining his pockets since he fell out of his mother. Since his mother gave him to a nanny as soon as he was born, and he's just it's like he wants daddy to love him, but more importantly, he wants money. And like Mary said, he'll never be satisfied. There's never a number that'll satisfy him.
And it's not just money, right? It's so this kleptocracy, right, which oftentimes is transactional for money. For Donald Trump,
Status,
if you notice, it's endless flattery, endless praise, right? He has to be
right?
seen. He can never admit that he's wrong. Even he cannot. How did the black Muslim get more people at his inauguration than him? So to this day, he still spreads the lie, right?
Yeah,
How could he lose? The election, no, he still spreads the lie. And speaking about how it's not just money that he's after, but also complete obedience, and how that is also part of the transactional nature
yeah.
of the kleptocracy, kakistocracy,
That's the
fascist
status
regime.
part, right? I mean, that in that definition is chiefly status. If you go back to what we started talking about at the very beginning, as everybody was joining us, the gift, the $400 million plane, status. He literally said it's embarrassing when I show up in foreign countries and they have bigger jets than we do. Status. It's ugh.
Here's another example, folks. If you think I'm just making it up, Donald Trump yesterday pardoned reality TV stars Julie and Todd Chrisley, who are serving federal prison sentences after being convicted 3 years ago of, wait for it, tax evasion and bank fraud. Now, why did he all of a sudden say, of all the things I have to do, I don't have time to read my executive orders? He doesn't. I don't have time to be president because he spent a third of his
No,
presidency golfing to the tune of millions of dollars that we pay for. Oh, yeah, Savannah Chrisley has been advocating for her imprisoned parents, filming an episode of, quote, My View with Laura Trump with the president's daughter in law, and spoke at the RNC. So, if you get close enough, not just to Donald Trump, but to people in his orbit, and
right?
give them puff pieces, quid pro quo, he will then pardon Julie and Todd Chrisley. And speaking about puff pieces, now he's pressuring, I don't know if you saw this news, Fred, CBS, Amazon, and others to do documentaries on Melania.
Jesus. Yeah, because remember she didn't get the Vogue cover last cycle, and they're still upset about that. I guarantee there's a list of things Melania wanted to put up with this because she didn't want to be here. She's never at the White House. Obviously, she lives in New York with rumors. I'll leave it at that. I don't want to get sued again. But she
Allegedly.
allegedly, yeah. Allegedly, she's living in New York with people, and definitely her son, who's in college now. But yeah, I'm sure she had a list of demands that said, "I need these things done. I want my." Remember, she got her own meme coin too. Don't forget that. I mean, the meme coin. So much of this goes back to that meme coin from the day before he got inaugurated, right? And I think
Can
I
you break
mentioned
it
that in the
down? Because I
previous.
don't think enough people are spending time on it. Like, why
Yeah,
it's such a big
the
deal.
it's such a big deal because look, I joke all the time that last cycle to bribe him really well, you had to go to stay in this shitty hotel at the post office there, right? And everybody was booking hotel rooms there. All the foreign countries booking suites there to make money off of him. Now, since he launched this meme coin, just literally there's a reason the timing was perfect. They launch it right before he takes office. It's too late. He's legal because he's not president yet. It's too late for the Biden SEC or DOJ to even look at how corrupt it is. And now that he's got it out there, the great thing about crypto is you don't have to tell anybody. Nobody knows who bought it and who owns it, except they are telling us. So people are saying, look, we just invested $2 million in Trump coin. Well, that's $2 million into Donald Trump's pocket. So it's the perfect thing. They don't even have to travel anymore to bribe him and stay in his moldy hotel with bed bugs anymore. They can just buy his coin and invest. And of course, it's in a blind account. He knows nothing about it. Well, of course, that's the thing about crypto. Crypto was made for this moment for guys like Donald Trump. And I have opinions about crypto. They'll probably, destroy my life because they have so much money. But this is perfect. And so no one's looking at that enough to say this is the basis of all the corruption in this administration. He got one and Melania got one. And all they gotta do is hand money to them directly. They never have to say a word about it. Maybe a note, a text message says, "Man, I'm glad I bought $2 million of the Trump coin." Oh, okay, friend. It's just it's so deeply corrupt. I'm not sure we've ever seen something so nakedly corrupt in American history. And what makes me sick is you see people like Johnson going on TV saying, "Oh no, the Biden crime family was undercover." He goes, "Yeah, do you think he do so?" Yeah, no, he's literally telling you, he's daring you to touch it, and then won't because they're kind. Now he's got an SEC he owns, he's got a FTC he owns, he's got a DOJ he owns. He hired the people who will do whatever he wants. It's the perfect grift that will go on forever. It's
And
sick.
he made hundreds of millions of dollars in the first 4 months of his presidency. I want to remind people that Jimmy Carter, based on concerns of ethical violations, sold his peanut farm, and Donald Trump is like, nah, I'm going to make $300 million at least off of this meme coin. Screw the emoluments clause.
Yeah.
Who needs that? Even though it's the Constitution. Speaking about the Constitution, I don't know if it's my job to uphold the Constitution. Remember that, folks? That was from 2 weeks ago. He
Yep.
literally admitted on Meet the Press.
He'd ask the
Is
lawyers.
that my job? I don't know. I'm a lawyer. I'm not a lawyer. Is it your job? What about due process? I don't know. So it's not, he doesn't know. He doesn't care. He has no interest in reading anything about due process, which is in the Fifth Amendment. No interest about habeas corpus is in Article 2. Nothing about emoluments clause. That's in the Constitution. He can grift, grift, grift. And speaking about crypto, just for a second, I want to stay on here because there was another piece of news that people forgot, but I try to keep receipts here on the left hook, is he also, if you remember, pardoned the Silk Road creator Ross
Yep.
Ulbricht. And Silk Road, for those who don't know, was literally this online hub where crypto really took off, where
Yep.
you could try to buy assassinations, child pornography, sex trafficking, and weapons and drugs, folks. Yes, it was like this literally a digital international hub of crime. And the creator of Silk Road, Ross Ulbricht, was sentenced, was spending his time in jail. And guess what happened right after he was elected? Full unconditional pardon to Ross Ulbricht. Now people are saying,
Yep.
why? And the reason is because to a lot of the crypto bros, Ross Ulbricht is a hero, but
Yep.
because crypto was the currency that was used on Silk Road, right? So they see him as
Yep.
this libertarian pro crypto hero. In order to get in good with the crypto bros, he pardons Silk Road's Ross Ulbricht while at the same time saying, I got to get rid of these brown immigrants because they're sex traffickers. Meanwhile, no problem that Silk Road was the hub of international drug trafficking, child pornography, sex, assassinations. Just remarkable.
Yeah.
Something I wanted to bring up.
And it's obvious. I mean, again, you'd have to be asleep. You have to be dead to not see the connections, right? Meme coin the day before it takes office. Pardon for the big crypto guy. It is like this was the cryptos industry. The cryptos came to him. Crypto industry came to him. Said, "This is what we want from you. This is what you're gonna get." And he got it. And he's like, "Good, I'm good." And he doesn't care. He's never being reelected. He doesn't care about reelection. Doesn't have to worry about it, right? He jokes about it, but he doesn't care. It's and then again, he's got all of his little minions. Stephen Miller doing his fascist shit. He's got. It's just. Again, I'm not. People I say often they get mad. Like I say, he's not in charge. Oh, are you kidding? No, it's all just a fucking charade. He's up here making his little comments and doing stupid shit, and they let him. And in the meantime, they're doing their own thing. They're destroying
And
our
you know what?
democracy from the bottom up, top
And
down.
you're not entirely wrong about that because, folks, if you looked at the press conference yesterday, again, Donald Trump is an old man. He doesn't
Yeah,
look right. He doesn't sound right. He spent about a third of his presidency so far golfing, more so than any other president. He seems
yeah,
completely checked out. If you've seen the video footage of him in the Oval Office, he literally asks the aides, "What am I signing?" Yesterday,
yes,
I don't know if you saw this, Fred. A reporter asked him. There was no gotchas. A reporter asked him about the new Trump administration plan to stop foreign visas and
yep,
do an audit of these students and their social media posts. He had no idea what the guy was talking about, which to
yep,
me is even more disturbing because what I've always suspected, and I thought about this ever since Signalgate, another controversy, Signalgate that everyone's forgotten about. Now there's a trilogy. In Signalgate, if you notice, Donald Trump was not part of Signalgate, and JD Vance got if you will, overruled by someone from the White House, who I think is Stephen Miller. Because remember, JD Vance is
yeah.
like, whoa, whoa, maybe we should, if you look at the Signalgate chats, maybe we should, slow our roll and wait a month. And someone comes from the White House and says, nope, we're going to do it now. You're
Stephen
just
Miller,
our you're just our
Stephen Miller.
VP who was given to us by Peter Thiel and the other
Yeah,
billionaires. Shut your mouth. Stephen Miller. I mean, real quick, when we talk about the oligarchy, now let's go into oligarchy for a second, or even kakistocracy. And I think why
yeah,
it's so dangerous is as Donald Trump is grifting, and he's dangerous as well, but he seems completely diminished. The person who is doing most of this, it seems to me, is Stephen Miller. And remind
yeah.
people the mindset of Stephen Miller, the white nationalist mindset of Stephen Miller.
Right. Stephen Miller's long time, even when he was in college, he was a white nationalist. And people say, "Oh, because he's Jewish, he can't be." Put that thought away. Doesn't matter. But Miller has always since college has had it out for immigration, and everybody talks about illegal immigration. He doesn't like any immigration. He's against legal immigration. He's made that clear very many times. Throw on top of that, he wants government control. If you look at the way he acts, he's very big on control. If the president has ultimate power to make this decision. He's a big believer in the. You guys forgive me. It's 2 in the morning. I can't even believe it or not. It really is the power of the executive, right? That the
Right.
executive has, an imperial executive can do everything. We, of course, that study the Constitution know that the three branches are co-equal branches. That's not Stephen Miller's philosophy of government. Stephen Miller's philosophy of government is a powerful executive, and he has the power to do basically whatever the fuck he wants. It's Congress's job to rubber stamp that. It's the court's job to say yes. You see that even today. I don't know if you saw Kevin Hassett was on Fox talking about the tariffs, and he was asked about the tariffs. He goes, "Well, we just need the courts to settle down, and they'll do that soon." It basically saying the courts need to get their shit in order and stop getting in our way. That the law they're trying to pass, the big beautiful bill, has a very hidden section where the courts can't stop things. They can't indict Trump. I mean, this is that's what's it called, the singular executive, my brain, but
Unitary executive
unitary
theory.
executive. Thank you. It's too. I just need more coffee. Yeah, and so he's a big blue. Then that goes to this very deep. Then you throw in his racism. You throw his aggressive, his ability. His, I believe he wants violence. I'm a big believer that he's aching for violence. He's creating situations where violence may occur. You know, I'm organizer for the Unite for Veterans rally, June 6th on the mall. We're
Oh,
very
great.
cognizant. Yeah, we're very cognizant. We're gonna have 10,000 or more people there. We're telling everybody this nonviolent protest is the only way to do this, because they're aching for an excuse to show violence. I mean, just look at the MAGA mindset. You talk about the George Floyd protest. Oh, cities were burned. Those cities were fucking burned. Studies have been done that showed that less than 3% of all the protests nationally had any violence in any way, shape, or form. But in the MAGA
One of the
mindset,
most
yeah,
peaceful mass
yeah,
popular protests in U.S. history, one of
in
the
history, to
largest
include the civil
protests.
rights, to include the civil rights movement, yeah, and people just don't get it. And so I believe that Miller and Holman and their acolytes are aching for some violence. They want to push us to that point so they can really really clamp down and use these emergent powers. And then all this stuff with the national emergencies, all the stuff with the executive orders, that's all Stephen Miller. Stephen Miller wants, the executive order. He loves that term, executive order. Yeah, the executive can do. He's the executive. He can just order it. The law firm thing. I mean, just think about that one, for example. The picking on law firms, writing executive orders targeting law firms that oppose them. Obviously, it's against the Constitution, obviously against the law. They're going to give it a shot. Hopefully, bet sure enough, judges are stopping them, but
It
who knows?
reminds me of, oh, this F word that corporate media is loath to use, but I have had no problem using, fascism.
So
And you use that word fascism. We define
I do.
kleptocracy.
Yeah.
Can you define fascism for the audience watching that you also talked about, the fascist element?
Fascism is a populist political philosophy movement or regime that exalts nation and often race above individuals associated with a centralized autocratic government headed by a dictatorial leader that is characterized by severe economic and social regimentation and by forceful suppression of opposition.
Hmm.
you
Eat the
know,
tariffs, Walmart. Eat the tariffs. You know
right,
what?
right.
Auto industry, I'm gonna set the prices in the free market. Remember that? Don't raise the prices. The trade wars, Taco Trump. Trump always chickens out, right?
Yeah.
Also, if I don't like your thoughts, like Rameza Ozturk, I'm gonna just kidnap you.
Social
If you're
representation, the attack on Harvard, the attack on universities. That's another social
CBSU,
representation. And JD Vance is part of this. Don't let JD Vance off the hook, okay? Vance has been saying for years that the enemy of America is liberal thought at the universities, right? This is part of the plan. The attacks on Harvard have nothing. Anti-Semitism was their vehicle. Again, we hand them these vehicles, and they're looking for them. And so this anti-Semitism bullshit to attack Harvard, they're all going to get it eventually. It's just how it is. I'm glad to see I went to Harvard for grad school. I'm glad to see them fighting back. I
yeah,
wish they'd fight back
great.
more. But again, I think the Onion had a great piece the other day. It's like America shocked to see themselves on Harvard's side.
Everyone's like,
We
I
are.
sit
I
here,
went
I'm
there. I'm
like,
as shocked as you are.
it's like,
but
that's what when you have the kleptocracy, when you have a kakistocracy of the world's worst, dumbest DUI hires running the joint, when you have
right.
oligarchy, controlled by the few for the benefit of the few, specifically the billionaires. And by the way, folks, the Trump administration is the most wealthy administration on earth. I don't know if you
By
heard from.
millions.
He mentioned Lutnick. Lutnick is the billionaire, almost sociopathic Secretary of Commerce who has openly talked about replacing workers with
Yeah.
AI. Has openly talked about, well, if my mother misses her social security check, she won't complain, right? These are
Yeah.
the people in charge, right? The oligarchy, the kakistocracy, the kleptocracy. But at the end of the day, it's a fascist regime that wants power by any means necessary. And people like Stephen Miller, they want to completely cancel habeas corpus. It's only been done 4 times because he believes we're in a war right now. His word was we're in an invasion. And to him, invasion is people of color. But as they're kicking out people of color, they're inviting white South African
Yeah.
refugees based on the Nazi conspiracy, which is bullshit of the white genocide. And I'm sure you saw that the Trump official Landau, when asked, well, why are you not allowing in, the Afghans who helped U.S. troops in Afghanistan and were promised, safe harbor in
Yeah.
America? Why aren't you allowing them to come in? And why are you allowing these South Africans to come in? He openly said, well, they assimilate better. What do you have in common with a South African farmer who's never come to America, Fred? Huh?
The
Hmm.
color of your skin, yeah, and you don't have to even think about it. And I'm hopeful. I'm a veteran, and obviously veterans of both political stripes are heavily involved in Afghan evac, we call it. And it's kind of stunning to see they're talking about a friend of mine's calling me very directly, who's been Afghan evac. He's brought over his interpreter. They're talking about deporting 9,000 Afghans who helped us because it's safe in Afghanistan now. I mean, everybody knows that the Taliban are all of a sudden like big
They're
sweeties.
out.
It's just the lies. And I think what bothers me, especially as a former as a soldier, I'm a West Point grad too. Just thank you for your tax dollars. But this whole idea, I mean, I do believe the stupid, the mono duty, honor, country. There's no honor amongst these people. Pete Hegseth has no honor. Christian Nome has no honor. Marco Rubio has no honor. They will say and do anything. They'll twist Mike Johnson, Moses Mike, who's allegedly a Christian, will say and do anything to please his master and stay in his good graces and perpetuate these lies about America. I mean, it's just incredibly frustrating. The constant talk of the economy being the tank or the military being the tank. We're the most powerful military in the world before they got here. We're the most powerful economy in the country in the world before they got here. They've only made it worse. It's just, I guess in the end, I always get stuck on that one. I didn't touch that in my last piece. I'll probably talk about that once again, but
Yeah, they made
left.
everything worse. And you mentioned, I forgot that you're a West Point grad. And speaking about the kakistocracy, can you define the kakistocracy and then give an example, especially with Donald Trump's really just pathetic, insulting speech at West Point and why so
Oh,
many people were like, that was just shameful? Because people don't know.
yeah. Yeah. Starting the definition, government by the least suitable or competent citizens of the state. I mean, I can't. I mean, my God, between the
That's
signal
the
gate.
kakistocracy.
Yeah, that's the caucus. That's signal gate. That's Christy Nome. IG model. That's the idiots like Lutnick who's supposed to be so brilliant, but says things like, "Just don't take your Social Security." The speech at West Point, especially coming on Memorial Day weekend for me, literally, I had decided to go visit my parents are buried in Jefferson Barracks National Cemetery here in St. Louis. So every Memorial Day weekend, I go and visit them. I've learned after the last 4 years that if I go on Memorial Day, it's a zoo, and I don't really get any, private time. So I usually go like Friday or Saturday. So I went down there, and I'm literally sitting in my parents' grave. They're buried together. You can do that as a veteran. You can have your spouse buried with you,
Mm.
which there's issues too. I'm sure. I'm sure my mom loves that. But having said that, I'm sitting there with my parents, like catching up as one does, and my phone's blowing up with people writing me and texting me like, "Are you fucking watching this, dude? Are you watching this speech at West Point?" And I'm like, "What the hell?" I mean, the thing he's talking about he goes to West Point. First of all, let's just start at the very beginning with a MAGA hat. Okay, he's wearing political garb, political merch to the United States Military Academy's graduation. I went to four of them. Vice President Bush spoke at one, Secretary of the Army Marsh at another. They always talk about these men and women who've dedicated their lives to service, these men and women, what they face in the future, what service to your nation means. No, Trump's up there talking about. Remember, you went off the tangent about his friend who was a real estate guy, built great house, but he bought a yacht, got himself some trophy wives. I don't know if you can call them trophy wives now. I mean, you could hear even the cadets couldn't control. You could hear him laughing. I mean, they're laughing at him. They're not laughing with him.
Okay.
They're laughing at. I had friends that were there, like Fred. It was these cadets were dying because cadets are, you're a West Point cadet. You've been suppressed for 4 years. They are a cynical, sarcastic bunch. I mean, when you're forced to wear gray wool clothes for 4 years, it makes at least a dent on your psyche. And so but for me as a service member, as a person where the honor code is a cadet will not lie, cheat, or steal, nor tolerate those who do. He was lying in his speech. He floated several lies about the government, the Biden administration, his predecessors, this. I mean, my favorite one is now that nobody wanted to join the military before I became president. Oh, those kids have been there 4 years, you clown. They literally joined the first year of Biden's administration. So maybe I don't, maybe that's not true. It's just, it is such an offense to those of us who have served. And it was interesting to me because I went hard on it. I wrote about it. I posted about it quite a bit. The usual MAGA mouth breathers attacked me, but the usual the usual military veteran MAGA didn't. I found that fascinating. How few did. Because I believe so many of them are seeing this unfold. Go. I can't defend this. There's just
Yeah.
no way. I actually had one MAGA guy say, "Hey, look, Fred." It was funny. I love how they come at me like, "Fred, on Twitter, I disagree with everything you say, Fred, but I am kind of offended by this one." I'm like, "Thank you.
No, I
We
mean,
agree on some things."
it's only been 4 months, and I have,
I
because
know.
I'm a masochist and I get invited into these right wing spaces like Piers Morgan and some other shows, and sometimes
God
I go.
bless you, brother. They don't let
It's
me in.
it's become very hard for them to defend this because what they do is a
Yeah,
whataboutism and they gish gallop and they switch to Biden, right? Biden's health, Biden's health, Biden's health. And I say,
yeah,
okay, let's learn everything we want about Biden's health. Let's release everything. But then let's also release everything about the guy who's president right now, Donald Trump, and then they
right.
switch. Because they know they're like, anyway, right. And so with Biden, I have my critiques with Biden, but Biden shook the hands of every single West Point grad.
Yep,
Biden was very respectful. And meanwhile, these people who say that we're being invaded and who are accepting gifts from Qatar and openly, selling, God knows what he's selling in exchange for money, say that somehow they are pro national security, right? The you
right.
talk about the kakistocracy, right? The DUI hires, the Pete Hegseths. I don't know if you saw this piece that came out, I think about 2 weeks ago, but in military.com, they did a piece in which they're saying that personnel no longer have respect for Hegseth. Can you talk to us about that? The veteran community, which
Oh,
oftentimes
100%.
people say lean right, they're like, this guy's a moron. We have no respect for him. And this is a man who, folks, is Secretary of Defense. He looks over a budget of nearly $1 trillion, 2 million personnel, our armed services, and about 4 months into this presidency, according to military.com, which I would trust for when it comes
Oh,
to
yeah.
the military, they're like, yeah, people have no respect for him.
It's funny how people don't like take military really seriously as a news organization. They really are good. Most of their reporters are veterans or were military spouses. Actually, almost half their staff was military spouses, active duty military spouses for a long time. Military.com gets a lot of great breaking stories. They have Patricia Kine, they have Steve Bannon. I mean, it's a great place. And so Steve, I believe, reported on the fact he started talking because part of the entire persona of Pete Hegseth, since he went to Fox News, was the tough guy, military veteran, hardcore, special ops stud thing. It's his whole persona. Every time he goes to visit military units, he works out with whatever hardcore units there. So he's running with the SEALs, he's wearing a weight vest and doing push-ups with the boys. And it's really part of his personality. And the thing about being in the military is the guys who are like that can see right through the bullshitters, right? I'm not a big tough guy. I did go to Ranger school. I earned my Ranger tab. I was an aviator in the Army. I don't pretend to be special ops, but I did go to Ranger school, and I did earn the tab, and I wore the tab for my service, and I was proud to wear the tab. That Ranger tab opened more doors for me than my West Point ring ever did, because they
Oh,
understood that I had learned, because an infantryman, a special forces guy, they understand. Okay, this guy speaks our language, and especially as a pilot, when I flew Black Hawk helicopters, remember they used to joke at Ranger school that. I got recycled in Florida. That's a thing where you fail a portion of it, and you have to go back through it again, which is great. And while we were doing the break, I remember one of the ranger instructors saying to me, he goes, "Man, Wellman, I'm glad you're a pilot. Nothing makes me happier than climb into a Blackhawk and see a ranger tab in the pod. Because you know what? He's going to drop us off in the right fucking place. Because you've had to walk, because you walk 10, 20 Ks a day." And so, anyway, back to the point. Hex never even earned his ranger tab. He was an infantry officer commissioned, and that's a big deal. And an infantry officer, he has to go to ranger school. He has to get that tab. It's like basic airborne wings, ranger tab. That's basic. He never even got that. He never did special forces training. He never did any of that. He did try hard. He's made up. He did civil affairs like in Iraq. He was a trainer in Afghanistan in their schoolhouse. He would never even saw the field in Afghanistan. The most dangerous job he had was driving back and forth to the airport, which is fine. We need all those people. But you can't then turn around and act like you're a badass war fighter, killer, knife fighter. So he's going all these units and working out with the boys, and they see right through it. They see right through the bullshit. And then when you get the signal leak, look, there isn't a service member alive in uniform right now that doesn't know how deadly serious the signal chat leak was. He gave out the specific attack timing and plans and packages on an open channel that include
yep.
reporter. On top of that, if you understand the systems that we use for classified information, they're air gapped, which is a term which means I have a classified in an office like his, there's a classified computer and a non-classified computer. Non-classified computer is my fucking answering emails and talking to people. Classified is classified shit. He copy and pasted those plans. So somehow he copy and pasted the strike plans into a non-secure system and sent it out as signal. Everybody who's ever had a clearance in the United States military was like, everybody saw it. Like the day it came out, because I posted about that, and tons of people were like, they saw the same thing. Like that's clearly a copy and paste because it was the way the spacing worked. He didn't sit. There's no way he was on his phone going, and at 2 o'clock, space, 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 a return. No,
Copy
copy,
paste.
paste, send, right?
Then
And
he lied
so
about it too.
then he
Remember that?
lied, and he's still lying about it, right? And so that's why so many in the military are like, you're so full of shit. You're not a tough guy. You're a tryhard. You're a wannabe. You're a fucking leaker. They call him Leaky Pete. I have friends that work at the Pentagon. They have. Have you seen this? Oh, I got it. See this. I don't see this. I love this stick. It's
Oh,
backwards, of
that's
course. It
great.
says we are clean on OPSEC. These are appearing all over the Pentagon, like in the Pentagon
Wow.
train subway station. Yeah,
Wow.
a friend of mine did a tour. She was a reservist. She did a tour at the Pentagon a couple of weeks ago. She came out laughing. She goes, "Fred, everybody calls him Signal Pete. There's no respect for the guy, which is why he's not out in the Pentagon talking to the troops. He does this video from his desk. He hops on a plane and leaves town. That's who he is. He's not even pretending to lead. And then the other thing we see that the troops see right through with Pete Hegseth is he's the Secretary of Defense. His job is budgets. It's interagency meetings. It's coordinating with Congress. It's working the halls of Congress to get their budget approved. This fucker is doing PT with the troops every day. Now, understand a soldier schedule. I get up at about 5:36. I go to the unit. I do physical training at like 6:30 for an hour to an hour and a half. We break. Maybe we'll get lunch, breakfast. We show up. And an average day in a military unit, believe it or not, they may not show up at the office until 9 or 10 because you gotta go home, you gotta shower, you got whatever. The Secretary of Defense should be in at 7 a.m. doing Secretary of Defense shit. Okay? Not running laps of Arlington Cemetery, right? And so the troops see right through this. So they know that my job is to do X. He acts like he's an overblown squad leader, right? Like a sergeant, which is fine. I will respect that. But a sergeant is a sergeant. The joke in the army used to say a lot when I was a major. I actually had a battalion commander and we would go to meetings and the commander we'd all be sitting there and I think at the time I was the operations officer with S3 and his big saying was kind of offensive was like, hey, I tell you what, let's do this. You do sergeant shit and I'll do colonel shit. Okay, and those are different. Like, so you go do sergeant, you go do operations and I'll do battalion commander stuff. But the point being, we all have our own fucking jobs, but Leaky Pete's out there acting like a fucking squad leader every day. And so the troops, back to your point, the troops see right through it. They see a guy who thinks he's tough and he's one of them, he's for them, but he's not. And then you have the story, by the way, Steve Bannon broke another story just yesterday that they have now taken $1 billion from the infrastructure and construction budget of the Department of Defense that was specifically earmarked by the Biden administration to improve barracks, rebuild barracks. So we have thousands of barracks around the world falling apart where our most junior enlisted soldiers live. Mold, black mold. People are getting sick, leaky pipes. Half the building is unoccupied because there's a water leak. $1 billion was earmarked to finally fix this clusterfuck, and he just took it for the border mission. Okay,
Wow.
didn't announce it. They're taking $1 billion for this bullshit, which is nothing but show. Okay, the military's not doing shit at the budget at the border. They're just there for show. They're there for the pictures, right? And then once you do hops a plane for Singapore, so the troops see right through it. So while he thinks and it's gratifying for me because if you look at what they've been doing for 5, 6, 10 years now, they've always been trying to separate the troops from their leaders, the woke generals versus the real warfare. It's a big thing they've been doing. You remember that
Yeah.
with Milley
Yeah.
and woke generals don't understand the troops. It was really working for a long. And sadly, it was working. The troops were doing that because again, mom are young, they're hardcore. Toxic masculinity is like literally the culture, which is fine, and we need those guys to blow shit up. You need somebody who thinks like that to blow shit up. Having said that, now that he's in, it's not working. That he can't separate because you know what? It's the classic situation. Now you're the guy. You can't say the leaders suck when you're the leader, right?
You are
And
literally part of the deep state. You are the elite. You
you're the
are the
deep
people
state,
in
right?
power.
You're the elite. You
And,
just got on $2 billion jet to fly to Singapore.
and
So
I think when it comes to kakistocracy, he is the perfect. Pete Hegseth is the perfect definition because
he is living proof. Yeah.
he's living proof in the hypocrisy of it all because his mission has been to purge the military and the government of DEI, which is literally competent black people and competent women,
Yep.
and purging a U.S. history of the accomplishments of people like, I don't know, Jackie Robinson and the Navajo Code Talkers. And you have the world's most mediocre white dude. who literally has allegations of alcoholism, economic impropriety, sexual assault, who is now,
Literally.
thank God, seen as like a complete clown that he is. And I don't know if you saw that news just came out this week that even the White House allegedly has lost faith in him because he set up a warrantless illegal wiretap allegedly of his own aides. And the leak, apparently there is no leak, right? So they're like,
There's no leak.
why are you setting up a potentially illegal wiretap of your own aides and using that as justification to fire them? Also, how come nobody respects you? Also, how come you're using Signal repeatedly and sharing information with your wife and your brother? I mean, it is such a cluster F of why we need DEI and not DUI, right? So you got the
Right,
caucus
so much for
ocracy,
meritocracy, huh? Right? It's like there is no
so much for marriage.
meritocracy.
You got the caucus
Interesting
ocracy.
backstory too. I don't know if you've heard what the
Yeah.
backstory to him. So the story I've heard from insiders, and we do have insiders, was that he wasn't Trump's choice necessarily to be Secretary of Defense, and he
Mm,
certainly wasn't Susie Wiles. So Susie Wiles is the sort of closest thing we have to a adult in the room, right? She's the chief of staff. For those who know, Susie been around a long time in politics, Florida politics specifically. And the word of the street was that when she took a brief vacation during the transition period, Don Jr. and one of the other assholes that's up there snuck into Trump and sold him on Hegseth. Hegseth
mm,
was Don Jr.'s pick because they're
mm.
bros, man. They're bros.
Makes sense.
So he was the bro pick and the white nationalist pick, but it actually wasn't who Susie Wiles was looking for at the time. And so that's why you see. And JD Vance, by the way. So JD Vance and Susie Wiles are over here, and then there's Hegseth. So his that when you hear the White House isn't happy, I guarantee that's a leak from Wiles
Ah,
or Van. There's though this White House leaks for a reason, right? And so they're just trying to set it up that hey, we're not happy. I mean, who leaked the fact that that story you talked about? I think a Washington Post story about the they're angry at him and sick of his bullshit. Who leaked that he did an illegal wiretap? I mean, that's a big
that
leak. I mean that's
internal.
a big leak. So I think I really do believe we're going to see more. I've been saying it's the signal gate, but it's accelerating now. We're going to see him get the Madison Cawthorn treatment. I really believe that. And if you remember what happened to Madison Cawthorn, right? All the
Remember,
stories started to come out, right? All the leaks came out about him, and I think Hegseth's getting Cawthorn, and he knows it.
it makes sense because that leak has to come from the inside. If it comes from the inside,
Yep.
that means it's a MAGA, a Trumper. Probably
Yep.
is wild because they're sick of his shit. Because look, listen, folks, I've said this before. I'll say it again. Secretary of Defense is no joke. In addition to
No,
looking
it's
over
a
a
real job.
it's a real job. In addition, looking over a $1 trillion budget and 2 million armed personnel, armed forces personnel, you also give advice to the president, the commander in chief, right, about our military and our strategic plans, right? So you need someone
Yeah.
qualified. And speaking about qualifications and why this is a kakistocracy, and it's so just he's such a perfect example of it. The last Secretary of Defense, General Lloyd Austin, a black man, had to be near perfect. He was an O10 rank, a four-star general. If you
Yep.
think I'm being, partisan, let's go back to the Trump's first administration. It was General Mattis. General
Hmm.
Mattis was also O10 rank four-star general. You can agree with these people, you can disagree with these people, but you're like, at the very least, this is about as skilled as you can get. A lifelong, completely
40
qualified,
years of military
competent,
service.
yeah,
40
like
years.
four-star general. Okay, at the very least. Okay, and then you also just think you're listening to Fred and speaking about respect, which is necessary, right? Especially when it comes to a close-knit family like at the military, they need to respect the chain
Yeah.
of command. You know what? I might disagree with Lloyd Austin. I might disagree with Mattis, but this guy, he's put in the time. He's put in the work.
Right.
He's a four-star
Right.
general. Respect. Hegseth, what have you been doing? I've been drinking and friggin' on Fox News wearing makeup for the past 10 years. And oh yeah, my own fellow colleagues when I was in the army reported me as a potential security threat. But
Yep.
I'm a tough guy, right? So cockistocracy through and through. And then you could also add Christy Nome
Ugh.
cosplaying with a $60,000 Rolex, holding the guns. You ever see that video where she's holding the gun and the soldier next to her points
Oh
the gun?
yeah. Oh no, I did like a short about it. I was like,
Can
he
you
literally
tell
is
people?
like,
I think it's classic.
he's like, yeah. Oh, I did a
He
whole
has a
I did a
gun.
video about I was out walking and I saw it as I'm walking in the woods, like I gotta do a video because this is so fucking funny, you know. It's like she's flagging everybody with the gun. It's like, oh my God, you know, it's like
The guy's just
my
like one attention going back in the
yeah,
bushes.
my kids know better, you know. I literally, you know, I grew up with guns. I'm a soldier. I was the son of a Marine. We had guns everywhere, and the first thing I taught my kids is to be safe. Look, I have nothing against owning guns. I have one now, you know, but it's locked up. I teach my kids how to hold it. I've taught my kids how to hold it and how to safe it because that's it. This woman's out here just, oh, look at me, I'm having so much fun, you know. It's just it's insanity. And again, another example of somebody. Look, you're supposed to be in the office. You're supposed to be running budgets. You're supposed to be hosting. Look, yeah, it sucks. These aren't fun jobs. Nobody goes, you know, Sec Def's going to be a blast. Nothing like being on call 24 fucking 7. You know, look, poor Austin. Look at General Austin. What did he have? Like some kind, I think it was a prostate thing or something. He couldn't even cover that up. He had, you know, he had to go.
To the
You know, he
hospital, right?
snuck to the hospital, and now the
Yep.
whole world knows he's getting his crotch worked on. You know, I mean, who would want that job? And he lasted 4 years, and because he understood the importance of it. And people forget the SecDef is actually in the chain of command. I can't tell you how often I have to explain to civilians, and even some military. The chairman of the Joint Chiefs is not a commander. The chairman of the Joint Chiefs does not give orders. The SecDef does. The Joint Chiefs are advisors. They're senior military advisors to the president and the Secretary of Defense. Everybody thinks they're commanding. They're the commanding general of the armed forces. There is no commanding general of the armed forces. There's the Secretary of Defense. That's how serious this job is. And they gave it to a guy who barely made major, which is fine. Okay, I get that. I mean, look at who was the gentleman who served in Vietnam? He was one of Obama's one of Obama's defense secretary for a short time. Doesn't matter. Vietnam vet. He was an enlisted man, but then he'd been a senator. You know, he had a life of accomplishment. Pete Hegseth was barely a success in the reserves, and then went to Fox. He got fired from both of his nonprofits that he ran or PACs that he ran. He got fired. I knew then. I've known him for years. I've known Pete since probably 2010, and we don't get along, and because we're on the opposite side of the political spectrum from the beginning. And his group, CVA especially, was always on the opposite side of us. And I called him for that, and they hated it. But this is a guy who is a life of ill accomplishment, and they placed him in command of the entire United States military. And it is incredibly look, this is going to shock some people. I want this administration to succeed. I want them to have a good military. I do because my life depends on it. I have a son-in-law still serving in the military. My son's a veteran. My father was a veteran. My father was a World War II veteran, end of the war. His father before him was a World War One veteran. I'm a Gulf War and Iraq veteran. I want my military in good
Yeah.
hands. I
Yeah.
do. I
Absolutely.
disagree with him in every form and every part of my DNA. I got DNA curls going, ah! But it doesn't matter because I do want because their lives are in danger.
That's
I
right.
want them to succeed, and they just continue to fail. If he put I was fine with Esper. I was fine with Mattis because at least they were adults and understood the weight of the position. But Pete Hegseth doesn't. You know, doing videos from his desk, hosting MMA fighters. You know, hosting. It's like his whole job is to be the VIP host and give tours and then fly off places with his bro. I mean, I don't know if you guys know, he made his brother. They avoided the whole thing of hiring family by him being hired by DHS as a liaison,
Yep.
but his office is next door to Pete's. So he's hanging with his bro, going on VIP trips. It's just I
Speaking
don't
about
want this for
corruption,
my
quid
military.
pro quo,
Yeah, more
hey,
corruption, right?
I have you for, I was gonna only talk to you for 40 minutes, but you were on a roll. Final 5 minutes. I want to ask you this because we talked
My
about the
father's like, this is
kleptocracy.
what Fred does.
No, but I love it, man. You were on a roll. I'm like, just keep Fred going. Final 5 minutes. We talked about the kleptocracy. We talked about the kakistocracy. I want to go back to fascism because I
Yeah,
truly think we're dealing with a Trump regime, and I
yeah,
think it's clear now, if you pay attention to what they've been doing and what they've been saying, is that they want power by any means necessary. Right?
yeah,
This is a right-wing authoritarian regime. If you don't believe me, listen to experts on authoritarianism who have been
yeah.
warning us for the past 10 years. People like Ruth
I'm
Ben-Ghiat.
interviewing one in an hour.
Yeah, yeah. People like Timothy Snyder, among others. Speaking
Ruth
about
Ben
the
Ghiat.
corruption aspect of it, something that's really frightening that not enough people are talking about. That yesterday, in addition to all the I know 900 people have joined us, folks. Fred was on a roll. I'm going to have this up in about an hour. I recommend you go back and listen to it. We connect the dots, and it's going to be published for those who joined us late. But we talked about all the examples of the quid pro quo, the pardons. Give me money, buy my meme coin, give me a jet. Yesterday, Fred, Trump said he will, quote, take a look at pardoning a group of men who were planning to kidnap Governor of Michigan, Gretchen Whitmer, in 2020, calling the case, which had resulted in two convictions and two guilty pleas, quote, a railroad job. And this is in addition to the 1,600 people, including some violent insurrectionists with a violent criminal record, that he has already pardoned. Uh, I think that is terrifying and a big news because that to me signals if you wear a MAGA hat and commit violence in my name, you're in my brown shirt.
Yeah. Well, did you see that his pardon attorney now, the guy who failed out of the DC attorney's job from here from Missouri, tweeted that after that fat sheriff from Virginia who gave out sheriff's badges to people for money, after he was pardoned, the pardon attorney tweeted, "Leave no MAGA behind."
Yeah, yeah, that's all. Yep, yep.
So
That's another
they're
example.
very clearly, I mean, that's the fascism right there. That's not the oligarchy part. That's literally saying if you're one of our guys, you're above the law. All you got to do is support us, and we'll make sure the law doesn't apply to you. He's in place a MAGA acolyte in the pardon attorney's job. He obviously, Trump's not in charge. He'll sign anything. Trump's a living auto pen. I love when they bring up Biden's auto pens. Like, that's all Trump is. Do. I mean, I got a Sharpie right here, right? Okay. You guys remember Blazing? You're probably too young, brother.
No, no,
Like the
Blazing
Blazing
Saddles.
Saddles.
Think about your
Yeah, the
secretary.
governor, right? Work.
Work, work,
That's
work.
Trump. Hello, boobs. And it's just that's Trump. I laugh because they have to read the executive order because he's never seen it before. He's got no idea. It's so funny. The MAGA go, oh, they're reading it for the public to understand. No, they're not. They're reading it for the clown fucking putting this Sharpie onto it. He has no idea what he's signing. And so these pardons are extremely dangerous. I believe that is. I'm really glad you connected the pardons to the oligarchy part because I did kind of in my piece too saying that they're buying it. But, well, the fascism piece, it's obviously the oligarchy piece because they bought them, but that one's dirtier. I'm so glad you brought it up, especially that sheriff in Virginia. I mean, this guy was giving away badges, and those badges were used for really bad things. They used them to, like, intimidate women. I mean, it was bad, and they just. I have a friend. He's a source in the FBI. I'm sure it's gonna get, and the FBI is they're like line special agents are in shock. And when he goes, he literally texts me, he goes, "Oh my God, three more pardons. We had that guy in Virginia dead to rights, like clean. We had the receipts, we had him on camera, dirty as can be. And because he's a MAGA acolyte, he got a pardon.
I mean,
That's
the
some
violent
scary shit."
insurrection, folks, the violent insurrection has just been normalized. These people, some of them, came with intent to not just overthrow a free and fair election, but also to kill Mike Pence and Nancy Pelosi. Some of them came with
Yeah.
weapons. Some of them have violent records of rape, assault, violence, right? Those guys are now free. And so, I mean, I know we don't think about it. I think about it all the time. I bring it up and MAGA hates it. They're like, oh, you're obsessed with January 6th. I'm like, I am, because all those people are not in jail. And the signal that it gave out, and now what Donald Trump is saying openly with the sheriff, because there's so many examples, but guys, to horrify you, me and Fred talked about like six examples. There's even more. There's even more
Yeah.
examples. We ran out of time. But the fact that he
Yes.
is open to pardoning a militia members who were this close to kidnapping a governor, saying they got
Yep.
railroaded, think about fascism, folks, and think about not just if you're sitting there watching right now, like, oh, well, I'll be okay. Whitmer, she looks pretty bad right now because she tried to cozy up to Donald Trump. Remember a couple of weeks ago? Well, does it matter? No. Tim Cook,
No.
otherwise known as Tim Apple, he was there in that front row, with all the other billionaires. Did it work? No, because now he's telling Tim Cook, you better make Apple iPhones in America so Fred and
Right.
Watch can spend $3,000 on
Which
iPhone.
is physically impossible to do in the next 10 years. It's like, it's just,
So this is the combination, folks, of an oligarchy, a kleptocracy, a kakistocracy. It is a fascist regime, and I really want to thank Fred for spending an hour with me. I was only going to spend 40 minutes with him, but he was on a roll. Fred, before we leave, shamelessly promote yourself.
two things. I would love your followers to come over to our Substack, On Democracy with FP Wellman. I am running a huge sale for the month of May on paid upgrade. We finally did. Actually, I really hadn't pushed paid subscriptions, but it does pay the bills. And
It does.
we're growing our shows. I have several shows you should watch. On Democracy with FP Wellman is my OG show on Midas Touch every Friday night at 7 p.m. Eastern live. We run it live. And then, of course, my favorite new show is Too Late to Cancel every Sunday. We need to get you on there, brother. Too
Let's
Late to
do it.
Cancel Sunday morning. It's more of a lighter approach to things. We kind of I have a lot of comedians on, and it's just I decided that we're too dour on this side of politics. So the Too Late to Cancel is a live show Sunday mornings at 11 Eastern. And I'd love it's on the On Democracy channels right on my Substack. If you're a subscriber, we do run it live on my Substack as well. And then this thing right here, I will get the last plug in is the Unite for Veterans, Unite for America rally, June 6th, the 81st anniversary of D-Day, right on the National Mall, Friday the 6th, right there in the middle of the mall between the Washington Memorial and the Capitol. We're hoping to have 10,000, 20,000 people from numbers. Indivisible joined us. Everybody's joined us. You may get to see my happy ass up on stage, which will be interesting. But you will definitely see the Dropkick Murphys. Who are going to come.
Oh,
They have a new
nice.
protest.
They're so great,
Yeah,
man.
they have a protest song out. They haven't released it yet. They're going to come sing live, electric set on the National Mall. We've got some other famous people coming that we haven't announced yet. I'm very excited to announce, but that's next weekend. There will be a live stream nationwide. There will be sister events put on by Indivisible. Anyway, that's a big thing I've been involved with. I don't know what's going to come after that, but that's eating up a lot of my time and a
No,
lot of
that's a
pride.
lot.
And
For
then
anyone who
Nate, it's
thinks,
just veterans. I mean, you'd love it. It's just a group of veterans, like 6 or 8 of us who've known each other for over a decade or more, have worked in DC or outside DC, and we just came together and we've raised about $250,000 and we're putting on a first class event. So I hope people will watch.
people who think and stereotype that all veterans are Trumpers and all middle-aged white dudes are Trumpers and all any white dude, Irish dude from Boston is a Trumper. I give you Dropkick Murphys and I give you
Oh
Fred Wellman,
yeah,
right? And this
thanks.
is so egregious and shameful right now. There are a lot of people who put country above party. And so we need a big tent and we need to bring as many perspectives and people. We need to capture and convert. We need all hands on deck because I believe we are folks are truly dealing with a fascist regime that is playing for all the marbles and willing to play violently. So we have to be informed, and as such, we're doing our part. For those who are joining us right now, I'm going to have this up in an hour or two. Strongly recommend everyone watch. I'm going to link to Fred's articles. So you understand what is the kakistocracy, the kleptocracy, the oligarchy, what's happening right now with Donald Trump. And this is the left hook. The left hook is reader supported. I have kept everything for free. There's no paywalls. Pay what you can. I'm like Blanche Dubois. I depend on the kindness of strangers. And yes, I got 3 kids. So anyone who has a few bucks, it goes a long way to like feed my children. And then if you're watching this on YouTube, like, subscribe. Thanks for all the the tips. And build up our own ecosystem. If you don't have faith in
Yeah.
corporate media, we're doing our job. Fred's doing fantastic work with Midas and others. So build out this liberal, non-fascist ecosystem to counter the chaos of right now. Fred, thank you, sir.
Thank
Take
you,
care,
Bram. I really
everyone.
appreciate it too. Do it
Later.
again.
Let's
Bye,
do it.
guys.
Bye, man.